Good morning to you. Happy Monday. The world is a better place today because baseball season is upon us. Opening day. I wanted to begin by sharing with you an initiative that I shared with my colleagues this morning with respect to school capacity issues. As I think all of you appreciate, it is overcrowding in our schools is one of the most pressing and urgent needs we have in our county. Our school system is growing between 25 and 3,000 kids a year, and we are underwater almost everywhere in our county. We passed last year, thanks to Councilmember Florine's leadership when she was president, an increase in recordation taxes that has helped us considerably in that regard to meet pressing needs. And that actually gives us an additional opportunity that we did not have before, which is we now understand that we will have every year between $55 and $70 million that we can count on for this purpose, that is dedicated for this purpose. When you have dollars dedicated for such a purpose, that then allows you to bond these dollars. So it is my proposal that we would bond $30 million worth of this revenue that will create over the next 5 years a net increase in our capacity to fund school capacity projects and any renovations that are necessary to make the schools even safer. $150 million additional dollars over the course of the next 5 years. In my judgment, getting a jump start on renovations, on additional capacity, and on making our schools safer is among the highest priorities. And we can do so, again, without any negative impact on our budget per se. This doesn't count against our GO bond rating. This is a separate set of dollars that are dedicated for this purpose. So I have spoken with Dr. Smith. I have spoken with the President Durso. I have spoken with Chairman Rice, all of whom have indicated their support for this concept that would allow us again to create $150 million in additional capacity over the course of the next 5 years. In my conversations with Dr. Smith, he indicated that they would be looking at this and seeking to come back to us in September, which is their normal time frame for having their big CIP projects, and that by doing it in this budget, we will then immediately be able to act on those capacity improvements and additions without delay. So it is my hope and expectation that we will create that opportunity in this budget. I have spoken with the county executive's chief administrative officer, who used to be our finance chair with respect to it. And he observed, as I think is also true, that bonding is actually a preferred way for projects of this nature insofar as it addresses the intergenerational issue. These projects are 20, 30, 40-year projects. They should be paid for over 20, 30 years as opposed to out of cash, if you will. And so it is a fair way to do this work, and it helps us expedite this work, and expedition is so very necessary. So thought I'd start with that issue because I do think it is going to be a very important, hopefully a very important improvement for our community, because as any of you appreciate, if your children are in an overcrowded school every day, you ask yourself, how can this be? So we need to get on top of this, and I am committed to helping in any way we can to get ahead of this curve as opposed to behind it, as we've been for far too many years. Other topic that I'd share with you is last week on Thursday, we had a very interesting joint committee session with our Prince George's County colleagues with respect to the Purple Line and WSSC. Mr. Hucker and I raised with our state colleague, how is it that the Purple Line issue could be sitting before this federal judge without the state knocking on the judge's door and saying, would you please expedite your ruling? You have been given everything you asked for. It is time for you to act. And I was pleased and surprised that literally the very next day the state made such a filing, asking the judge to make a ruling by the end of this month. My hope is the judge will do so. As a regulatory lawyer, I have shared with you before, in my judgment, he is not entitled, as a matter of law, to substitute his judgment on the substance of this matter. He is entitled to have found that the project that was proposed, or the decision that was proposed, was arbitrary and capricious because it did not take into account something he thought was significant. Many of us did not think it was significant. But he has now been, and then he opened the proceeding to say, show me why I'm wrong. Show me why this matter is not important. And the federal government did so. They have now provided him that information. Having provided him that information, he can no longer find it arbitrary and capricious. They gave it consideration, and he cannot substitute his judgment for it. So it is now time for him to get out of the way. We have bigger fish to fry in this project, and we need to get on with it. We need to make sure that the Congress supports this project, and we believe that, again, as all of you appreciate, we were literally 2, 3, 4 days away from a full funding agreement with the federal government before the federal judge intervened. And so we need the federal judge to get out of the way, and then I think it clears a much better path for us to get this project concluded. What else did I want to share with you guys? I don't know if I had anything else I wanted to share with you. I will be introducing tomorrow a bill to create a business services center in county government. Some of you may recall that when we created our Economic Development Corporation, we were concerned that that corporation will not and cannot be all things to all people, and that our small business community in particular needs constituent service. And as we have an economic development corporation that tries to attract businesses and retain businesses, we felt the nitty-gritty work of helping our small businesses stay in Montgomery County and, in many instances, work their way through our regulatory processes, that we needed people in-house to be there for them, that was a government function. And so we are introducing, and I believe I have the support of 4 of my colleagues with respect to that, and so I am confident that we will, in fact, create a business services center in county government. We had 5 votes for this before when the Economic Development Corporation was first proposed, but we decided we would hold off at that time to see how the Economic Development Corporation went about its work and what its needs are and were. And now we are confident that this piece does in fact belong in county government. Let me give you an example right now of work that's being done in county government that doesn't belong there. You have the Human Rights Commission being the ones that are sending out information with respect to sick and paid sick leave and things of that nature. That's not where this belongs. It needs to be in one place that understands businesses in Montgomery County. So we're consolidating and creating an office of business services. Why don't I turn it to you guys?
Could you give us your thoughts on Larry Hogan signing the bill for the WMATA safety compact?
Very pleased, obviously, that this is something that all 3 jurisdictions, I believe, have passed. I think Virginia has passed it, District has passed it, Maryland passed it. It was always anticipated that it would pass. The federal government played a little hardball with us in terms of holding money back, and I feel that was inappropriate insofar as our legislative cycle is what it is. And so this was a matter that, in my judgment, was handled appropriately and makes it clear that the jurisdictions take seriously our responsibility with respect to safety oversight, that is not ultimately a federal government responsibility. The federal government has stepped in because the existing system actually is not okay. It didn't have any teeth to it. This will have teeth, and so it was the right thing to do, and now we need to get on with the conversation about dedicated funding. But this was an important first step in demonstrating that the region takes this very seriously.
Can you tell us what just generally speaking, summarize the kinds of work that the Council of Governments had in this process?
Yeah, so I think the Council of Governments played a very important role of convening the various jurisdictions initially, of working with the Department of Transportation and the Secretary's office directly to make sure that we were all aligned. Anytime you have lawyers in the room trying to draft documents of this nature, it can get a little gnarly, and so this was important that the Council of Governments stepped in and played a nice coordinating function.
So the Council of Governments has, well, I understand you have the legal background, but the Council of Governments as a whole has the ability to hold them to task that way?
Under the legislation, does it have the ability to hold them to task? It is a convener. The Council of Governments is an excellent convener. In and of itself, the Council of Governments has no legal authority in this matter, but we do have, in some instances, the power of persuasion, and brought the parties together and made sure that we were aligned with respect to what this had to look like.
Is there any disagreement on the council over upgrading security at this building, or do you expect that bill to just pass unanimously on Tuesday?
I expect that bill to pass unanimously on Tuesday.
And what about the $225,000 for security upgrades at Jewish buildings in the county? Do you also expect any disagreement over that? Do you think that's still necessary?
Yes. I don't believe there's any disagreement with that. I think you have seen that I asked the county executive to make sure that we have the capacity to address other needs in other communities that have also been subject to hate crimes. And so it isn't just the Jewish community, as you appreciate. The Muslim community, the Sikh community are two communities that come to mind that have experienced an increase in hate crimes that we need to be attentive to as well.
What about the progress on those communities?
I apologize, say that again.
What about the progress involving those communities as far as money going to them?
So I think what is envisioned is that we would create a fund of approximately equal amount, and that organizations would submit grant applications, if you will, for that very purpose. As you may recall, in the instance of the Jewish community, those were grant applications previously, so they had been thought through, they had been vetted, and so it was easier to act on those. So now we're giving these other communities that same opportunity, and we want to make sure that the county funds those projects that are most appropriate.
Have they moved forward?
I can't answer that question. I have met with the Muslim community in particular with respect to their needs, and I know that a lot of thought is going into it as to where it stands. I can't speak to that.
Any thoughts on progress from the police department reporting on the body cams and the issues involved and where they are in that whole progress?
No.
On that issue, are you confident that the county officer who shot and killed a man March 27th in Montgomery Village acted properly?
I have no comment on it. I have no information that would allow me to opine on it if I was so inclined to opine on it.
So I guess my follow-up was just, have you seen the body camera footage from that incident?
I have not. Did we exhaust you? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm done if you're done.